Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Utah's famous or infamous Great Salt Lake. That's the body of water out this way. What's left of it is also behind me over this way. The Great Salt Lake is rapidly shrinking. That's why I say what's left of it. It's kind of a ghost of its former self. I mean, there's still lake left, obviously, but it's shrinking more and more every year, every decade. And so there's concern that in X number of years or decades, I don't know how many, I don't know the number, but there is some concern that it'll dry up completely at some point, which will create an ecological disaster from all the dust of that lake bed getting, blown up into the atmosphere, into the surrounding communities, and the potentially harmful, toxic things that dust could have in it. So it's a possibly pending ecological disaster, but we're not going to focus on that today. Today we're going to focus on some of the adventuring that can be had on and around the Great Salt Lake. The lake itself is a little bit of it's weird to say hidden gem because it's so big and it's obviously so close to, a few million people here in northern Utah, but it does tend to be a little bit pushed aside, a little bit forgotten, because it is so kind of unpleasant in certain respects. Like, it doesn't smell great, it doesn't necessarily look great, it's not necessarily easily accessible. And right now I'm on Antelope Island. This is the largest island of the several islands in the Great Salt Lake. This is looking back the way I've come. So this is the northern tip of the island. And there's a 7 or 8 mile long causeway connecting the island to the mainland, we'll call it. These are the Wasatch Mountains out here. That's the mountain range that runs across or alongside Salt Lake City. And I love this place. I'm hiking up the highest point on the island. It's called Frary Peak. And now that I've come around this little knoll here, I can see the Wasatch Range a little bit better and see what used to be, again, more of the Great Salt Lake. But you can see how this is largely dried up here. I think that's a combination of increased water usage from the cities around here, and it's not being as much rain and snow in these mountains as there used to be. And so the amount of water coming into the lake from the creeks and rivers is not what it used to be. And so gradually the level of the lake is just lowering and lowering, and it has been for a while now. And this is the top. We've made it. Check this out, this sandstone slab here. If I can get my shadow out of the way. USC&C Survey 1892. That's pretty cool. And here's the grand reveal. Again, this is the highest point of the largest island of the Great Salt Lake, Frary Peak. This is actually the 4th or 5th time I've done this hike. And that's a little bit weird because I don't normally repeat things very often. So downtown Salt Lake is kind of just around the corner here. This is my favorite view on the island. I love how this sinewy mountainous ridge just continues along the backbone of the island here. Really, really neat. And then this over here, this is the Stansbury Mountains. These are the Stansbury Mountains over there. And this right here is the second largest island in the Great Salt Lake. It's called Stansbury Island. Like I said, I have done this hike before. This is probably my 5th time here. The first time I checked yesterday, I looked back at my photo archive. I first did this in 2011. I was living in Salt Lake at the time, came out here for the day. It was in the spring, and the spring is both a good and a bad time to come here. It's great because it's green, like this entire island is green. It's not great because of the bugs. In the summer, in the spring, there are just tons of gnats and biting flies here. That's one thing that the lake here is kind of known for, just these biting bugs that are awful, 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 awful. And then I've hiked this, I think another time on my own. I hiked this with my brother a handful of years later. And then I've hiked this with my wife. This was our 2nd or 3rd date hiking up this mountain. It's always fun to return to favorite places. Sometimes they change for the better, sometimes they change for the worse, unfortunately. That is the danger of going back to favorite places. It could be worse than it was the previous time. But a place like this, it's not going to change, you know? I came here at sunrise. I parked my car right at sunrise so that I could be here alone. I could have the hike to myself. I haven't seen anyone else up here. I've seen a few mountain goats, or I guess they're bighorn sheep, is what they are. It's fun to be back. Got some green olives here as a hiking snack. Kind of a weird hiking snack. I have some other sugary snacks, but this is more appealing right now. There is one more thing that I wanted to see here on the island, one other thing that the island is known for, and that is bison. So bison herds were introduced here, I think toward the end of the 19th century, maybe the beginning of the 20th, because the free-roaming bison herds in the West were rapidly being decimated. And so some were brought here, potentially as a commercial hunting opportunity for people. That didn't really pan out. I don't think that was very profitable, but eventually the herds here were protected, and so there are free-roaming bison here on the island, and I saw some of them as I was driving in here today. Let's go find the herd and find some of the other bison and see if we can get a closer look. And I think that'll wrap it up for Antelope Island. Really neat place. There are a lot of trails here, lots of stuff to do. But we are now going to head to the second of the great islands of the Great Salt Lake. I showed you when I was on top of Frary Peak, Stansbury Island. That's where I'm headed now. It is kind of the forgotten little brother of Antelope Island. It's only about 15 miles away as the crow flies from here. But I'm looking at my GPS here. I'm an hour and 40 minutes and 88 driving miles away. So it'll take a while. Probably gonna stop and get some lunch on the way. But let's reconvene once we get to the second island in the Great Salt Lake here. All right, everyone, welcome to Stansbury Island, or at least the mountain behind me here. That is Stansbury Island, that small mountain range. Right now I'm on what used to be Great Salt Lake, but this is just salt flats now. This is a section that normally, probably in like the spring and early summer, is usually covered in water. Right now, it's obviously bone dry, and this is all salt right here. All of this white, this is all salt. This is all normally lake. And yeah, it really is like a miniature salt flats here. You can see the salt crystals. These things, this is, I mean, that is just salt. And look at that reflection. That just perfect reflection. And do you also see the slight pink tinge of the lake? That's from some sort of microscopic bacteria, something like that, that gives this part of the lake a pink tinge. Just so beautiful and calm out there. It reminds me of a place in South America, in Bolivia, I think it is, called Salar de Uyuni, where it's just this like perfect mirror reflection. It's salt flats kind of like this, and when there's water on the salt flats, it just perfectly reflects the sky. And yeah, that's what it's like here. It's kind of a smaller scale version of that. I'm right at the water's edge now, and there's some sort of mining operation here. On the way in here, on the way to here, you pass by private land. So a lot of the island itself is BLM land, is public land, but kind of the edges of it are private land, and there are signs saying to stay on the road and everything. But there are salt operations, like salt evaporation operations over there, and mining operations. I don't know if this is salt or mining or construction related. I don't know what that is, but look at the pink of the water here. Now that I'm right at the edge. Does that come through in the camera? Can you see how pink that is? That is wild. Pretty remarkable place, this. I've seen people call this section of the lake Pink Lake for obvious reasons. If you do come here, bring sandals or water shoes or something like that. I have bare feet, and it's fairly excruciating. I mean, for the first like 10 or 15 feet, the salt is kind of like sand. It's relatively soft, but then you get beyond that, and it's just like walking on jagged rocks. It's pretty unpleasant, actually. Let me dry off here a little bit, and then we're gonna head back south. So I'm at more or less the northern end of the island here. I'm gonna go toward the southern end, back the way I came. And I'm gonna go for a little hike, and maybe I'll just surprise you with the footage once I get there. So stay tuned. It'll take me an hour or two to get there, I think. Well, the magical scenery here on Stansbury Island has continued. I'm not on top of the island. The highest point of the island is a few miles over that way. I didn't want to do that hike. It's a longer hike. I don't even know what this thing that I'm on top of is called. I don't even know if it has a name. It's just a point along the long ridge that again, kind of like on Antelope Island, forms the backbone of Stansbury Island here. Beautiful place. The sun is setting, which is a little bit of a problem. I don't love hiking in the dark, but it's doable. We'll manage. I don't even think this little point that I'm on is the actual high point of this mountain. I think this little knob right here is the high point. And so I do need to go over here just to tag the summit. But then also there's a road, like an old dirt road I can see right here. And I saw it on the map that I have. Can you see on that ridge? There's a road right there. My plan, because I don't want to do what I just did in the dark. So I'm parked down over here somewhere, and I scrambled up this way and then came up this ridge to the top here. I'll put a picture or a clip of the hike from the trailhead, from where I started, where I parked down there. But I don't want to do that in the dark because there is no trail. That trailhead goes over here. The trail from that trailhead goes over here and then like over here. So my plan is to go to that road and then I can follow that road somewhere down over here to that trail, and then I can follow that trail back down to my car. As long as I get over to that ridge with that road on it, once I get to that, I'll be fine. It's just following the line back down to the car, even if it is in the dark. But I wanted to end the day up here. Just a beautiful, beautiful place. I am going to camp on the island. Like I said, there is BLM land along here. I can actually camp where I parked. Probably won't camp right there, but in that area I saw a couple of potential campsites. Beautiful place. Very obscure place where I am right now. I do not think this gets climbed ever, really. But doesn't mean it's not beautiful. Doesn't mean it's not worth doing. And with that, I gotta get going. I'll see you guys back at the car.
Good morning, everyone. It's 8:20 the next morning. The hike was fine. I mean, yeah, it was dark while I was hiking, but I made it to the road and then to the trail without any problems. I'm camped right now, or I camped last night within eyesight of the trailhead, so I didn't have to go far. As I was going to the trailhead yesterday, I noted this campsite right here. And yeah, so it was easy to find a campsite. You can see a truck going by right now, and that happened all night long. So there's a mining operation like right over this ridge right here, and then there are others further along on this side of the island. There's another mining operation right here. I can see an excavator right there on that ridge, and so it was not quiet. Kind of a noisy night, but I slept fine. Not a big deal. Here is the mountain that I climbed yesterday. So from the trailhead, which is just right here, I went up to the ridgeline and then followed the ridgeline up to the top, and then went over and then back and then around, and eventually made it back home to the car. And I think that'll do it for this video. These two islands that I've been exploring are just really neat, really interesting. They feel like a world apart from the civilization that is really not too far over this way. Whether you live in the Salt Lake area or you're just passing through, I think these islands definitely are worth the stop. And one thing that I wanted to mention about the hike yesterday, the Frary Peak trail that I forgot to mention. So I did say that was one of the first dates that Cassie and I went on. And so I sent a picture to her yesterday of me on that hike, and she said, "It was on that hike that I knew I was going to marry you." We didn't get married for another 3 years after that, but I thought that was nice, and it's a fun little note to end the video on. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Be sure to check out Adventure Know-How, my new site, where you can gain access to a map of all of my free campsites, plus monthly bonus videos that you won't find anywhere else. Learn more at adventureknowhow.com. And for links to everything else SUV RVing related, visit suvrving.com. Links to these sites and more will be in the video description.